Hi, welcome back everyone. Lovers of fourth way and non-duality and inner work and consciousness and yeah. So welcome back to another episode with Peter Engel and myself, Mihai Algiu. This is episode 49. You'll have a whole playlist here if this interests you. Know that there are 49 previous episodes where we go in depth about explaining, sharing on the teachings of the fourth way, practices of the fourth way, non-duality. And this is the last two episodes. The last two episodes we embarked on a small project to help people who are really interested and they studied some of the books and they are interested to do actual work. We kind of guide loosely, a little bit like as on a board, on a game board, where to start, what to explore, where to go next. So previous episodes, and so this will probably be the third part where we are continuing. So you can use these last three episodes as a little roadmap. Actually, Peter, interesting, Peter, somebody reached out to me who saw some of these things and joined the meetup group and told me that he's been reading Gurdjieff and Ouspensky and this and is inspired and this and that. But I'm not sure what to do, how to start, So it was really wonderful that we had something to guide. So the first two episodes, we talked about the last two episodes. The essential steps here would be to learn about the core practice. Everything comes down to, it's supposed to help us practice presence or self-remembering, self-observation. We talked about that. The first obstacles against that, this state of being sucked into imagination, daydreaming, negative imagination, lost in the mind. We explored on that. We explored about other obstacles like identification and identified with the imaginary picture, what others think about us. And so that's what we did last two episodes. And today we are going to focus on something which is essential. Anybody who is interested in awakening, spiritual growth, or even healing, that area is an area that makes it or breaks it from one angle, I would say. How we tackle this area of life, it determines a lot. And this is this area of our suffering. We are upset. I'm upset. I'm triggered. I am dealing with anxiety, with fears, with self-pity, with indignation, with loss, with grief, with righteous, whatever, these strong emotions, sensations, energies in the body, they come. Usually in a regular person, something happens, maybe nothing happens, and suddenly there's energy in the body, emotions, so-called trigger, then this goes into links to the intellectual center, the head. And then it starts to play out, this energy, this unpleasantness, this fire. It plays into the head with thoughts about it. And consciousness is identified, is not witnessing, is not aware of itself, is in the fire. Is in the fire, is fueling the fire, it's consumed by the fire of this body, emotional, mind churning of strong energies, and then this wants to express itself. This wants to express itself. In a regular person without spiritual training, this wants to express itself. Ouspensky would say there is a worm in you, a worm in you that wishes to express itself. And for some active types, he wants to go out and then talk and shout or judge. or send a, a message on Facebook, or a comment, or this, or go to the protest, which it's all fine, go protest, yeah. Some things need to be protested, but depends where we are coming from. So he wants to go out different ways, in a violent, aggressive way, in this disruptive, or that can manifest in a subtle way, in a subtle way. It's the same thing. And then it can manifest inside. Now, some other types, they are more reserved, introverted, less expressed. It goes inside. It's expressed inside with the churning of the tapes and what happened. It shouldn't have happened like that. This is not right. How dare they? Or it goes express itself against oneself, like, can't believe I did this again. I'm such an idiot and so stupid, and this will never, this kind of stuff. So that's what happens for most people. For everybody, it happens like that. Maybe for other people, some other form is that there's a trigger comes and there is some kind of strong repression, or some other type of spiritual work or pseudo-spiritual work happens when it's like, hey, no, let's be positive, or no, don't show this, control it, it's not safe. So the same thing happens, but the expression may be pushed down. However, it pushes down into us, so it still plays out at the other level of contractions in the body and confusion and chronic pain and various things. So that's what we are going to touch upon today, and how to, it's important to bring the work to this. That's really important. In the fourth way, that's the second conscious shock, this idea of investigating unnecessary suffering, letting go of unnecessary suffering, and transformation of real suffering, and the non-expression and transmutation of unpleasant emotions. So in fourth way parlance, these are very important areas, what I just said. Non-expression of unpleasant emotion with the aim of transmutation, non-identification, unnecessary suffering, self-created, real suffering. We have videos in this playlist. If you look at the titles, we have videos an hour and a half on each topic. Yeah, so know that. Now we are going a little bit global.
It's worth mentioning too that in both those examples you gave, this usually what happens with these unpleasant emotions, they either explode, which is a display, an external display and an external expression, external manifestation of some kind, such as the anger, the irritation, the impatience, the accusation, the blame, the gossip, all these things, or they implode. And in both cases, what's happening is pressure is being relieved. These are relief valves for pressure. There's pressure usually in the body. It usually starts in our, what the fourth way calls the instinctive center. There's an irritation, there's an anxiety, there's a tension, a pressure, and we seek to relieve this pressure. And of course, real suffering in our life is big pressure. Real pressure, emotional pressure, psychological pressure, physical pressure, or combination. And what we're talking about is how to, what we're talking about today is the fact that the fourth way teaches it's possible to harness this energy consciously. It doesn't mean we suppress it or repress it, which we do unconsciously, but there's a way to not get tangled up in the energy so much that then it automatically seeks a relief valve of some kind. How do we contain it consciously without, I think in psychotherapy the term is disassociate. We're not trying to pretend it's not happening. We're not trying to ignore it. No, we don't want to get tangled. So it's just worth mentioning. This has to do with pressure, how we unconsciously automatically relieve ourselves of these pressures through the expression and display of unpleasant emotions, or through the internal indulgence in those same emotions? And then what does it mean that this could be material for transmutation?
And this is more advanced work, what we are talking about. It is like we are trying to swim, and now we are trying to swim when there's big waves. There are waves, surf waves, hurricane thrown overboard, but we haven't swum in a lap, so it's impossible really to do what we are suggesting here if one hasn't done laps or swimming in a lake and put some time practicing that. And the swimming in the lake, doing laps, refers to doing the same work of bringing presence and returning to presence and observing, and while conditions are overall neutral, there's nothing problematic happening. It's so hard to do that. Basically, we go against a big inertia of sleep and lack of attention and lack of spiritual training, and nobody taught us. So even to be present and remember ourselves in neutral conditions, it's requires a lot of study, personal application, reminders, aims, working with others to really be consistent about that, because the whole humanity doesn't do that. Yeah. So now where we're talking about, it's the same effort of being present and not being identified, but now it's like edgy, it's intense, it's hot. So
And also, this is all tied up with our feeling of identity. And this is what makes it difficult in large part. A small example, and it's a common example now. There's a lot of tension on the earth right now and in humanity. And for those who are interested in celestial things, I'll just list a couple of things that are happening. One, we're in the peak of an 11-year solar flare cycle. People don't usually understand the effect this has on us tiny little humans and on our psychology and on our nervous systems. The magnetic impulses coming from the sun and these electronic flares passing through space, reaching the Earth and surrounding the atmosphere of the Earth, and then moving on through the solar system. All of this has a big effect on us psychologically and physically. We also are coming up to a period of high meteor, the most intense peak of meteor showers in the earthly cycle every year, which happens during August. In history, often major wars have started at this time, and you see what's happening in the world now. There's a lot of conflict, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety. These are having a big effect on people, whether they sort of really know it or not. It's, of course, everybody knows it, they feel it, but this is happening simultaneous with these solar flares. We have lunar cycles. There's a big planetary alignment, by the way, in the solar system. I think 5 or 6 or 7 planets are all lined up in a way that they haven't been in a long time. Now, if you just think about physics, I know people think, oh, what's that got to do with life on Earth? Well, we are tiny. Solar system is very big. These bodies are moving around in the solar system, and it changes the energy, and it creates tension, and it can create lots of energy. So a lot of these things are happening. So right now, you can wake up in the morning and you can feel in your body kind of like an intensity, a physical, instinctive um, intensity, tension. Let's just call it that. Tension, like something's wrong, something's not right. I need to do. I don't feel right. I don't feel good. I don't. I hear people saying, I feel kind of um, uh, not like brain fog, but I feel kind of a little dizzy, a little crazy psychologically, a little. Things aren't settled. Things aren't calm. So what happens is this is happening in our body. And now that energy, physical, instinctive energy in our body, starts to percolate and agitate. And then what happens is our consciousness, which doesn't normally recognize itself as just pure consciousness of what's going on, it identifies, it attaches to that energy. And now this energy becomes a feeling of I. And now we start to have all these thoughts and emotions like, oh my gosh, maybe something's not going to work. I shouldn't do that. Maybe I should change my whole life. Maybe I should do this other. Maybe the worst will happen. Maybe, and then it starts going. And when these periods of time are happening, as I just described, the velocity and the intensity of the thoughts and emotions increases. And it can feel like our brain is a pinball machine. And it's just bling, 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 all this going on all the time. And it can be difficult. Well, what we will often try to do is calm that down. How do we calm down the pinball machine? And there are many techniques in psychotherapy and in modern mindfulness and all these. There are techniques, but in actuality, we don't calm the pinball machine down by working on the pinball machine. We calm it down by awareness extracting itself from this attachment and just witnessing this mental activity, but being able to stabilize as the witnessing of it. And only when that starts to become stronger and occupy more of this, let's say, the space in our being, only then does it start to have an effect on this agitation, to the point where we can dismiss the psychological things that are happening as a result of this energy, and then just begin to get to the energy. Now there's this raw energy, and this is what can be transmuted. But for that to happen, we have to release, consciousness has to release its attachment with all of these thoughts and all of these emotions, instead of fighting with them, instead of wrestling with them, instead of wishing them to go away, instead of trying to control them, instead of resisting all these things. This is what we're talking about here with these unpleasant emotions, negative emotions, transformation, all within the larger context of awakening.
Yes, it's striking that modern day psychology, New Agey teachings, there's a lot of emphasis on nervous system regulation, which will be like soothing some unpleasant state, and like freaking out and trying to get to more stable, calmer, self-soothing. And also, if people have had a lot of hurts and PTSD and damage, horrifying experiences, because in my profession I'm seeing this all the time. Terrible things happen a lot to people, and so this contributes to their nervous system is in a relatively chronic state of fight or flight or freeze, and that's not actually very possible to witness and be very successful in this work if the nervous system is jacked up in fight or flight or freeze. So from this point of view, it is very helpful to learn some kind of self-soothing, self-regulating tools like breath work or chanting or yoga or qigong or anything. I mean, I was talking to someone, there are these rings that they track your they track your instinctive center, they track your physiology. And I had one of these rings too, and I could see when there's physiological stress and this or that. But this person told me, when I watch these silly telenovelas, it's like my system gets restored, peaceful and calm, and I'm like, okay, so yeah, this is what's happening. One, I'm no longer giving attention. I'm distracting from this inner turmoil, and I'm looking at this silly novella, and my physiology goes to a baseline. Okay, the same will do a yoga session, the same will do even mindfulness for self-regulation. And that has a place. It's important to be able to hack this a little bit. However, this makes me think of Gurdjieff in Beelzebub's Tales. He talks about that humanity is in the grip of the evil god of self-soothing. He really called it like that. Yeah, the evil god of self-soothing, and people trying to basically dispel and calm the pressure, the friction that is necessary to create the fire, to create the light and the transmutation of awakening. So this may evoke some criticism, whatever, because people say, dude, I'm in a trauma, I'm doing this for 7 years, I can't, how do you say that's not good? Hey, if you have a trauma, if you have PTSD, don't worry about this. Learn how to self-manage, do all these things. We are talking here about using this human suffering and the pressures to activate and develop our consciousness potential, or as Gurdjieff would say, to use the energies of the physical body, mental bodies to jumpstart and feed and nourish and strengthen the higher being bodies. Like when this presence is more frequently longer online, apparently, it's hard to verify scientifically, but there's some alchemical process happens, and something in us, we are activating a subtle body, which is much more the identity than the mental body or the physical body.
And it's not, when that happens, it's not making the pressure go away. What it's doing is it neutralizes that pressure. This is subtle to see, but when we are more present, more conscious, consciousness itself, this thing that can't be measured, although science has indications of this, an object when observed changes its behavior, is known about. But in this case, we're not trying to change the energy, but we can neutralize its effect on us. Doesn't mean the trauma goes away, the pain goes away, the suffering goes away, the negative imagining goes away. But suddenly it is stripped of a certain aspect of its intensity by virtue of us being knowingly conscious of it and realizing ourselves as this consciousness of it. Suddenly it disarms, you could say. It disarms the intensity, the pain, the negativity, which doesn't necessarily go away, but it starts to be disarmed, neutralized. And this is what it means not to be identified. For when consciousness is not identified, life starts to neutralize itself. Just in those moments when you're more present, something changes. And this is what we come to realize and recognize through this, what we're talking about.
Yeah, I had a misunderstanding for a long time that if I engage in this work, I will become immune and imperturbed by anything. And there was the misunderstanding that I will reach a permanent state of total untouched. and actually it's not like that. And I experienced myself, and also I talk to people that appear more conscious and advanced teachers, and the idea is that actually no, the more conscious one becomes and less identified, one doesn't become bulletproof, unfeeling tank. It's more like actually one is very aware of every little thing. One is very aware of little disruption, a little disruption in the chest or in the belly, or somebody said something. There's a fine awarenessing of fine energy and waves, and also so one is much more receptive and touched, feeling deeper. However, there is no resistance to it. There's not fear of it. There's the complete, total understanding around the it goes much easier, and one has trained to not resist energies, to allow them, to not hold on to them, to let them flow on their own, by themselves, without embroidery.
And without the feeling of identity attached to them.
Yes.
This is what gets neutralized also. Now, when this happens, these things, we still have a human vessel that still gets hurt. It still burns if you put heat on it. And all these influences, the sun, the planets, humanity, other people, our situation, our life situation, all of this, these things still impinge upon this physical body. And to a certain extent on the psychological body. But less and less is there a feeling of me. So it's not taken personally. This is the other thing. It's not taken personally, meaning as a sense of identity, I'm being hurt, this shouldn't be happening to me, I don't like this, etc. More, this is happening, it's not even registered as a negative thing, it's registered as a sensation, a negative sensation. It's not anyways, and so this idea of not being identified or being less identified means less a sense of identity contributing to the problem.
Yeah.
You take away the sense of identity from problems, and problems change, their nature changes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this dynamics of suffering in sleep, in identification, there are several components that contribute to that. There is the, whatever it is. Okay, so there is a stimulus, something from the outside, somebody on TV, somebody said something, didn't say something, whatever, government. There's a stimulus. Now this triggers, touches some energy of a pain body, or Thich Nhat Hanh talks of seeds of suffering that we have in our store consciousness, because there are seeds of suffering that are there. Our ancestors, our childhood, pain, but whatever. Yeah, it comes up now. This stronger, fiery phenomena comes in. Now there is a embroidery. There is a sense of me. This is me, identification, me, and then there is also that I don't like it. I don't like to feel this. I don't want to feel this anymore. Yeah, so is the stimulus, is the seeds of suffering, the pain body. Then there is this is me, and then I don't want this. This is what's happening. And now we magnify our suffering, becomes unnecessary self-created suffering, unnecessary self-created optional suffering. And yeah, and then if one is suffering consciously, so one is present, very clear about being the presence, and a lot of spiritual work under one's belt, so to say. And my partner dies. You know, I just had a client that their partner died suddenly. I mean, that's very intense. And I mean, this is an extreme example, but still some bad thing will happen. There will be some loss, some old age, sickness, loss, some difficulty, stressor. It will look different. What will be this energy comes, and it's not resisted. Or as soon as it's resisted, it's like, hey man, don't resist it, allow it. Just accept what the moment brings. Let it be as it is. Where is it? It's here. Bring more awareness to it. Don't let it go into the story. It's possible. It doesn't go into a story anymore. It's just more localized here. And the moment you suffer, remember yourself. This acts, this friction reminds us, whoa, okay, there's some waves here. Let's get more present, and remember oneself with this energy. Now, that will still be there for a while, but there's much less suffering with it. Still discomfort, there's still, depends on the intensity and depends on things. It can actually go right away or much more tolerable. Second is that it's profitable. Algiu said we need to always make a profit in the fourth way. We make a profit. Spiritual profit, I mean.
It makes me think of something Uspensky delineated, that there are three different sort of categories of these unpleasant emotions, negative emotions, and our ability to harness them, manage them, transform them. And the first kind is sort of like mild irritations, little inconveniences, things like this. By noticing that they're happening and us realizing we don't have to identify with this reaction in our body, by virtue of that, it's dismissed, it's neutralized. And in a way, you could say it's transformed. But it's more transformed in the sense that it's ceases to occupy space in our psychology. Now, a more intense category, what he called this sort of second category of negative emotions, unpleasant emotions, being triggered and reacting, has a complexity to it that has to do with our attitudes and the way we think and the way we've come to think about ourselves, the way we've come to impose expectations onto other people in our life, and now we sort of tied up all these knots. We have to untie these knots by thinking differently. And this is popular in the idea of mindset now. Having a different mindset means adjusting your relationship to things by thinking differently about them. And the master of this, by the way, is Katie Byron, or Byron Katie. She uses both names. She teaches people how to master this technique of thinking differently in order to neutralize their imaginary suffering, and also thinking differently in order to allow the real suffering to touch them the way it's meant to touch them. And then Uspensky said there's a third category, and this is all just for mental purposes thinking about, but it can be very helpful. These three sort of categories or degrees of negativity, negative emotions. And the third is, this is when things are really tense and difficult. Your partner dies, there's a catastrophe, a cataclysm, you're in serious danger, or you have a severe health issue, things like this, or big financial loss suddenly, and so on. And he said the only way, trying to think differently in these instances isn't going to get you very far. And even this effort to try not to be identified, just simply don't get so identified, isn't going to work. It's like Mihai, you mentioned swimming in the ocean during a hurricane. This is when the hurricane's happening, and you're out there trying to swim. All you can do in those instances is try to use that pressure as a catalyst for self-remembering, for being present. For awareness is just simply trying to ride the wave, at least stay up above the water surface, and just be there, and knowingly be there until the storm passes. And sometimes that's all we can do, but that's a lot. And instead of resisting it, fighting it, wishing it would go away, and these kind of things, to ride through the storm as consciously, with as much presence as we can muster. And this begins to fortify awareness. And in fact, these moments, these most difficult moments, are the ones that truly enable consciousness to establish itself in itself with full awareness. So these are huge moments. Someone also called these moments of suffering, I think, seeds of Buddhahood. These are the seeds of Buddhahood. And how can they bloom and grow, or grow and bloom?
Yeah, we had an episode, I believe, some months ago, Grace of Suffering, and we had another episode maybe a year ago in this playlist below, where we really go just into that topic, transformation of suffering, and this as an element of purifying, and through intense pressure met with wise acceptance and wisdom of the bigger picture, and then it helps to wash away illusions, more ignorance, more arrogance, false attitudes. It breaks down certain strong egoic constructions. But that is more advanced. So what the Gurdjieff is saying is that we have two types of suffering: the unreal suffering, the imaginary suffering, and then the real suffering. The real suffering is what we just talked, like big events of the human conditions. But Gurdjieff was saying that it's a large majority, 90% of our suffering is imaginary suffering, which means that is created through, sleep identification, taking things personally. Also, we have some attitudes that are okaying, that are giving permission, that are enhancing the righteousness of being upset about that and how I'm right about being upset. And then all of that upsetness comes from various false attitudes. So here's what Peter was talking about. At some point, it's important to see what are these corrupt attitudes. One of them would be, you make me feel like this. You keep making me feel like this. And like, okay, somebody else makes me feel like that. So somebody else is responsible for this. The fourth way, very important. Without this attitude, we cannot go very far. Hey, this negative emotions is in me. It was just some stimulus that happened. And this is in me. That didn't create this. I have really verified this many times. People in the same conditions of, let's say, spiritual workshop or something, several people get triggered. But when they talk about it, it's about different things, and different stuff is stirred in them, which was in them. Some pain body connected with their own painful identity or painful patterns. This is connected also with childhood imprints and all of that. Yeah, so nobody is responsible for this. Nobody causes this. This is in me. This is very important. And there are all kind of other attitudes that are blocking the transformation or the letting go of unnecessary imaginary suffering, like that I need to express it. I need to somehow that I'm right somehow. So maybe if we can have some more on this, Peter, because I realized we went again pretty deep, and kind of bring it down more like for somebody new, this unnecessary suffering. Yeah.
You touched just on a key point here of this at the heart of it, which is starting by realizing, well, first of all, the fourth way teaches the way we begin this investigation is by not expressing, not giving immediate expression to things like irritation, anger, frustration, impatience, wanting to criticize, wanting to complain, wanting to accuse these. So in daily things, in your family, at your job, at the grocery store, you come to the register and the line is longer than you would like. And you start, and maybe you even say something. You say something to somebody else in the line.
Mm-hmm.
You're complaining, you criticize, or maybe you even yell to the cashier, "Come on, speed it up, pal, let's get this moving," or whatever your tendency might be. Fourth way teaches curtail this expression. Don't deny that you're feeling it, but do not let it come out of your mouth. Basically, stay quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Don't open your mouth. Shut up. and contain it. And only when you contain it, see, once we express it, it's gone. It's like this special material, and it's gone out. And then we can't do anything with it really. But if we contain it by not expressing it, now we can use this as investigation internally to see where's that coming from. And we'll always feel that back in there is this feeling of me. I don't like this. You're not doing it the right way. I don't like you. These people are always doing this, blah, blah, blah. And begin to look at this. So the non-expression of these small negative emotions really becomes a vehicle for self-observation internally in a more detailed, specific, in-depth way. That's the beginning. And only when that starts to happen can we really talk about these further stages. We've actually been talking about them, but to understand how they're connected, you can't get there without getting there. And the way to get there is to try not to express immediately, to not give immediate expression to these things for the purpose of investigating them, observing them internally. And if you do this, you will find inevitably it will come out later. For example, you might be at the grocery store and you think, okay, I'm going to try not to express the negativity. I'm irritated by this is happening, the parking lot, whatever it is. And then you get home and 2 hours later, you're talking to your wife or husband or friend, and you just find yourself happening to mention how long that damn line was at the grocery store again. It finds its way, this energy finds its way out, and largely because it is connected to this feeling of identity, we want to prove ourselves right. Even when we feel we are wrong, we want to prove to ourselves that we're right about being wrong. I get to blame myself. I get to accuse myself. I get to be right about that. Or I'm right about blaming the supermarket. Why don't they have more people working at the supermarket? I'm going to write a letter to the manager. It goes on. These are just small examples, but try to contain the outer expression, especially immediately, the immediate expression. Turn it, use it as a lens for looking inward. And this will provide a lot of material for a long time, for study and for self-remembering in what the fourth way calls self-remembering.
Yeah, and you said it, but it's worth saying it. It's not to contain it, to just contain it, not express it in order to control it, to be controlled and to be in control. I used to do that because my feature is about control. But no, it's about controlling the expression. This is just a half step, because this thing, it's like it's a core sleep, core mechanical tendencies that we have, our ancestors, childhood, humanity, and that needs to be investigated and needs to kind of open, that's and so that's why we contain it, so we have a chance to bring it to the laboratory and starts to burn it, so to say. It dissolves gradually dissolves all the clutches of a lot of things in there. So try to see what's for you, somebody in traffic, impatience at the restaurant, just, oh God, like irritation, impatience, indignation, judgments. It shouldn't be like that. So observing what are the most frequent negative emotions, that will be a good beginner step. And then also when one is triggered relationally, somebody says something and I'm triggered, and to observe that, because people are triggered, this happening for hours, can be churning on this and rehashing and taking to mental court. This is a therapeutical tool too, but it's very good for awakening. When one is triggered, to really sit down, even soon afterwards, bring up the situation again. Because if one is triggered relationally, it's pretty strong. It's not enough just to in the moment contain it and be aware of it and then it dissipates, goes away. Because it's so strong, there's a lot of stuff in there that will keep activating again. So what I recommend, if it's strong relational trigger, to identify, you bring the situation up again, your mind's eye, as you are aware and seeing, okay, what did it mean about me? There is a meaning, there's assumptions. What old story of mine, old story which being some kind of painful attitude, some distorted thing is being evoked in it. So basically to get to the real causes of it and bring this to awareness, that then when you see that, oh, nobody will ever love me, or they want to change me, or you will get a chance to see that, oh wow, this is like a thought from a 5-year-old, it's not true, and I'm so riled up because I believe this thought, which was subconscious. So
Also, in relational situations, this one of the best ways to start thinking about this is connected to the idea that nothing and no one makes me negative. The cause, the source of the negative emotion, the negative reaction is in me. Now, something may trigger it from the outside, but they're triggering the cause that's in me. And this is especially true in relationships with people. You don't like, say, a husband or a wife doesn't like being told what to do, or they don't like that the other person didn't do things the way they wanted them done. And so then the one person keeps telling the other person what to do, or the other one person keeps resist something like this. And in both cases, the feeling is you're making me negative. You keep telling me to do that, or you never do what I say, or you never do what I want. I want you to, and so on. And so to adopt this new way of thinking, and this is a new way of thinking, the cause is in me. There's something in me causing me to react to that trigger. This is turning things around 180 degrees. Instead of now blaming the other person, blaming the world, blaming my circumstances, I'm actually removing blame. There's no one to blame, but there's a cause in me. There's a reason why I react this way when this happens. And by not expressing the immediate negative reaction, we can begin to cast light on that. And this is huge. This is enormous, and this forms the basis of what the fourth way calls self-observation. This is true, honest, deep self-observation. This isn't observing my idiosyncrasies or that I like this and I prefer not that. No, this is getting to the root of the psychological feeling of I. And these negative emotions are like this growth around this core feeling of identity. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to loosen these layers, and there are many, and they can be very subtle, and some are very strong. Some have a long root, and this can be a long study to see what's going on in here psychologically. And I just want to add another thing. When we don't express negative emotions, what happens is we have to contain intense energy. So regardless of the subject matter, regardless of whether we're irritated, frustrated, anxious, afraid, so on, there's an energy there that's difficult and unpleasant to contain. And this whole effort of not expressing negative emotions is the beginning of learning how to harness intense energy. The greater the suffering, the more intense the energy. The more intense the energy, the greater the possibility for transmutation, if you can reach transmutation of that energy. So we learn, you said, Mihai, swimming laps. We learn with the little things, the irritation in traffic and in the grocery store and with our partner to contain this energy by not expressing it it's the beginning of developing a certain kind of muscle, you could say.
Yeah. They don't talk, the masters, they don't in the fourth way talk about that, but it's implied through this work, you enhance the capacity to feel consciously, enhancing the capacity to host difficult, powerful, unpleasant energies in the body in the presence. And as one of my teachers would say, Francis would say, this is happening. The right attitude and the right understanding is there's no me in this feeling. This feeling is in me as this presence. And he would say, don't be the slave of the me in the feeling. The feeling is in me as this presence. So, but here is a tricky issue. Tricky issue is that we can use spiritual technique. We can use some method of trying to remember ourselves and being aware and using this, I'm not that. Hey, I'm not that, which is true. I'm not that, neti neti. I'm aware of it. Using that Also with a slightly subconscious agenda that if I do this, then I am not going to feel this is going to go away. So watch out for this, using spiritual techniques in order to make the suffering go away. Actually, we are using spiritual technique and spiritual awakening in order to be better at allowing this energy, and then through surfing it, surfing it, we de-identify, take the identity out of it where it belongs. And then this way we transform the second conscious shock. That's an important fourth way terms for people interested in the fourth way. As I said, in Algiu would say that for this octave of awakening, this process of awakening, we need to bridge certain intervals, like the first conscious shock and the second conscious shock. The first conscious shock is connected to our efforts to be more present, be more aware. Look at the trees without associations, being aware of oneself as the seer, and all of this, not going in imagination, being aware of gesticulating, being aware of thoughts, feelings, just being more aware, This does the first conscious shock in a way that something starts accumulating and growing. This subtle alchemical energy, it starts growing, accumulating. We're no longer leaking it, we are accumulating it. And then the second conscious shock, basically, that is not enough. It's important to now bring self-remembering to suffering. And that is a very essential.
You can also think of these shocks, for those who are interested in this topic. It is a shock coming from consciousness. So the first conscious shock, the self-remembering idea, is what we're really doing. We are bringing consciousness, or consciousness is bringing itself to perception. We're always perceiving things, but now consciousness is knowingly bringing itself to perception. So now you're not only seeing the tree, you're aware of yourself seeing the tree. And then maybe later you're not only aware of the tree and aware of yourself seeing the tree, there's something aware of you being aware of yourself seeing the tree. So it becomes more layered and more nuanced. But nevertheless, the idea of the shock is like an influence. We're bringing consciousness to bear on perception. The second conscious, this is sort of a simplified explanation. The second conscious shock, we're bringing consciousness to bear on suffering, on pressure. You can think of it simply as pressure. Let's get rid of the word suffering. Real or imagined pressure. You're bringing consciousness to bear to this pressure. And if it's imaginary pressure, by virtue of consciousness bringing itself into it, it will disappear. It doesn't exist. It's imaginary. If it's real pressure, it will still be there. In the body, in the emotional body, in the physical body, and so on. But by virtue of consciousness introducing itself as an influence in this, then something else can happen. Then a transmutation can begin to happen.
Yeah, so on this topic, so remember, the people interested really to practice, to apply, you can research in the workbooks, or you can look in the playlist here, these terms like non-expression and transmutation of unpleasant emotions, unnecessary suffering or imaginary suffering, real suffering, transformation of suffering, second conscious shock. These are all, if you go in the search of the miraculous, or if you look here, you'll find a lot of detail breaking down knowledge, practices. Also, Peter wrote a wonderful book which condenses all the information on the fourth way about that, and I think it develops it and refines it. I think it's a little book called the Non-Expression and Transformation of Negative Emotions. Yeah, so I really recommend that book. You can get it from his website or the Amazon. Really wonderful book. And yeah, for timing purposes, I think we should stop here, Peter. And yeah, you guys who watch this, or people are coming to my group, or people that I don't know are watching this, yeah, feel free to send questions or something like that. I think that's what I would like to do next. Maybe ask people we are working with some questions or topics of interest.
Yes, and just a final word, start small. When you feel irritated or anxious or fearful or angry, try not to express it right away. And instead use that as a way to turn around and look inside yourself to what may be causing this without trying to come to a conclusion, but just to look. This is a means of looking internally. Many of the masters of the past said, look within. This is like a special tool the fourth way offers. This is a way to start looking within. It's to control the outer expression of these discomforts of pressure, psychological and physical, and start to go within.
And also, I mean, one last thing is they don't talk about this in other paths. They don't focus so much on these negative emotions, suffering. They don't talk a lot about it at all. And it's surprising because in this area of trigger and reactivity, and that's where we have the most self-contraction, the most sleep, the thickest identification. So we have to bring the work to it if we want to more freedom, more ease, more peace, more insight. All right. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Mihai.